I worked in high tech for over 20 years. I got my master's degree at Purdue University, computer science. I was a senior engineering manager at Apple before I took an early retirement. That's in 2018 after obtaining financial freedom. I bought lots of houses, a good investment, and to focus on my spiritual path, my Buddhist training. I founded the Luminous Wisdom Meditation Retreat Center. It's 45-acre in Los Gatos Mountains, and I guided the youth leadership retreat. This is something we did in 2022. I guided students from the retreat for their college application and also research, including my older son, Bryant, who is a freshman at UC Berkeley now. Yeah, so from my experience, college application, we need to start early, and which I didn't. So I had some quite failure, which I want to share also. And it's a pretty complicated system. And what I found, what works best is the parents have to be involved. And if you have a college counselor, you want to work with the counselor as a team. So that's why for this presentation, I'm hoping both the parents and the kids are listening, because I know there are quite some parents trying to help their kids. They spend time finding informations, listening to webinars, but some kids, they don't. They don't have time, or they don't have the resource. And then even if the parents know what to do, the kids may not know. And especially teenagers, they don't listen to their parents oftentimes, unfortunately. That's why it's good for the students to listen too, so they kind of know what the system is like, and what's the competitions are out there, and what are the things they need to do. Because for lots of kids, they may think, oh, as long as I have good grades, that's enough. Depending on what type of school you are targeting, just getting straight A is not enough in lots of cases. And of course, if your grades screw up, that just make things even worse. Yeah. So work as a team, and try to get yourself and your kids educated. Yeah. So what is holistic review? Especially compare this to the like in China, we have the college entrance exam. This is something very different. There are many aspects to consider. One is what we all know, the grades and the standard test, the GPAs, the SAT, ACT, and the AP test, and the extracurricular. This is pretty much everything other than your grades and your standard test. Here I just list a few of them. One thing is all kinds of competitions, from STEM to economics to business to law, and even entrepreneurship, you name it. Um, Research. This is something I didn't know until, say, maybe about a year and a half ago. I didn't even know a high school student can do research. I got my master's degree. I didn't, well, I actually, I did some research. I was a research assistant for, I forgot, one semester or two semester, but I didn't have any publication. So the first time I learned about high school students doing research and publication, I was really shocked. And leadership. Leadership is actually very important, especially if someone is targeting, say, top 20 universities. Um, I think most people know the US News ranking. In case you don't know, I can send you the link. You can take a quick look. Now, let me try to just send it in the chat window. Yeah, actually, if you're not targeting schools at this high rank, the lower the ranking, the less they care about these like leadership and the community service. The lower the ranking, actually, at those level, it's pretty much just your GPAs, because the students at the lower applying for lower ranking universities, they're not the 4.0 students. Yeah, so their GPA is the main thing. And community service and art, music, and sports. In your application, you also have to write lots of essays, especially for the top 20 universities. Each of them has at least like three essays you have to write, and recommendation letters. Yeah, these are recommendation letter from your high school teachers. By the way, UCs don't require recommendation letter, um, but private schools they do. Some even ask you for another recommendation letter other than your high school teacher. Yeah, so when you apply, it's just doing the application itself is just tons of work. It's lots of time also. So yeah, let's look at the black box. The reason it's a black box is because people don't really understand how the system works. It took me lots of time to do research and to even spend money to find out what's going on in this system. I think by now I pretty much figured out what's going on. And of course, I need more data if, say, someone particularly asked me, for my kid, here's the profile. What chance does the kid have? I need more data, in particularly data for the particular high school the student goes. So you may ask, why holistic review? Why not these top universities just admit students based on their GPAs or based on their SAT scores? That's because the GPA and SAT can only differentiate top 5% students at most. The SATs, if you kind of have some idea what it is, the SAT has the math and English part. The math part is pretty easy, especially for people who come from China. Um, if a kid cannot score 800 in SAT, even after some practices, uh, the math is kind of weak. My son Bryant, when he first took the SAT, his math was a 780. And I look at the questions he did wrong, and I was kind of shocked. I was like, the question is so easy. Even middle school students in China can get it right. So I did tell him, just do more practice of the math test. I think he did maybe about 20 math, the past exams or whatever. And the second time he took it, he got 800. It's just very easy. So normally for students whose math is reasonably strong, it all depends on how good your English is. If your English is really good, it's not difficult to get the full score 1600 on SAT. Similarly for ACT, I've seen there are more students getting full score on ACT than SAT. I don't know. I think some people saying the ACT math is even easier than SAT. I don't know because my son he tried both. He actually did better in SAT than in ACT. So for most Americans, if their English is pretty good, getting even a full score on SAT or ACT is something not that difficult. It cannot nearly compared to the college entrance exam in China. And the GPA is something really depends on your school. Some schools are more competitive than others, and it also depends on your classes, the rigor of your classes, if you're how many APs you're taking. But from what I found is, unless you are at a very competitive high school, getting 4.0 GPA is not that difficult as long as the student works hard. So again, this is something cannot be compared to the difficulty of the college entrance exam in China. So combining these two, you cannot really distinguish among the top 5%. But if you add up how many students the top 20 universities can admit, it's only top 1% of all the students. So you have this gap there. You basically have all these students with, say, 4.0 GPA and even SAT, ACT really, really high. They are still way more than those top schools can admit. Yeah, I tried to gather some data. Based on the data I got, the Bay Area high schools, on average, there are 10% student having 4.0 GPAs. That's just like the average. I've seen schools as high as 20%. I think I forgot it's one of the school in Cupertino. They have 20% students with 4.0 GPA, and I see the lowest one I found, I think, is Mission San Jose. They have like a 5 point something percent, and it's just 1 year's data. But I think a year over year, it probably is not much different. So you can see most schools are around 10%. So if your high school has 500 students, there are at least 50 students with 4.0, and then there's the student with 3.9, right? So these are not enough for the admission officers to decide who to admit, just too many. And another thing, which is very different, is the so-called hooks. Especially for the top private universities, there's the so-called legacy, which is basically if your parents went to this Ivy school, this only for the undergrads, then you are considered a legacy, and they just you are just in a different pool for those who are not legacy, which makes it easier. Anyone with a hook, they have a higher likelihood of getting admitted. Legacy is one thing. Athletes, yeah, these schools they recruit athletes. If you are athletes, then you're in a completely different pool. And low income first generation. This is most of us. We are not in that category. Even if you're Chinese, if you're low income, you're first generation, you have a much higher probability of getting admitted than the other Chinese who are just normal middle class or making even more money. Yeah. So sometimes when you see like I listen to lots of webinars and try to find lots of information online. Sometimes it looks kind of weird. One student doesn't seem to be better than the other student, but got admitted into a very good school. And oftentimes they don't tell you about the hooks. If you know, especially if the information comes from college counseling companies, they usually brag, we have this student got into this school and that school. And if you don't know all these background, it's meaningless to compare. And the another thing is something very different, and lots of people who don't realize this is there are actually quotas. um, in China, the college entrance exam, you sort of have different bars, but this is the province level, right? Each province has a bar, and every province the bar is different. But in U.S., it's not based on province; it's actually based on high school. If you look at the Ivy schools, they're usually small. They have on average about 5,000 or 6,000 undergrad altogether. So every year they admit about maybe 1,200 or up to 1,500, depending on which school. And you look at how many high schools there are in US. If I have this data, I should have put it. I think in US there are 20,000 high schools, and you're only competing for 1,500. So actually, um, many high schools, they won't have even one student get admitted into the Ivy schools. And even the ones they do, it kind of depends on which high school. And but if you are able to get this information, so that's something for you guys as a homework, and you can probably do better than I do. I try to find this information. I have limited data. What you need to find out is in your high school what the competition is like. Try ask other parents, with especially older sisters, brothers who graduated. uh, you find out this information, like this year, how many students get into which university. It doesn't change that much for one high school. um, Basically, what the admission officer does, you know how they review the applications? The admission officers, they are assigned particular areas and high schools. Like the admission officer I hired for Bryant, she was the assistant admission director at Brown University, because we found major, which Bryant, his profile matched really good. So we decided in the early round to ED Brown. And then I tried really hard to find the admission officer who worked at Brown before. So she'll have more inside information. She said when she was working at Brown, she was assigned in some area in Florida. And usually you work in this area, you know the high school is good, you know which high school is what kind of the top tier, the second tier, or whatever. So what they do is, when they look at a particular high school, they will get all the applications for this high school. For example, Saratoga, they will get, say, Brown University. They may have, I don't know, 100 or even more. students applying for Brown University. And from the data I found in the last 10 years, on average, every year from our high school, there are 1.5 students ended up going to Brown. They may admit more. They may admit 2 to 3 because there's redundancy, there's overlap. Someone may got multiple offers and then they could only go to one university. So the admission officer has the task of from say 100 application, uh, she can only pick 2 or 3 at most. So you ended up competing with the students in your high school the most. And then for a region, they have a quota too. Say for the Bay Area, for Northern California, how many students Brown University will admit? They usually look at their past year data, and then they kind of consider some other factors and balance out. But this number is the key. You're not even competing with another high school, say in the same school district. Our district has 2 high schools, Saratoga High and Los Gatos High. Our students do not compete with students in Los Gatos High. And I was able to get enough data that I could see clearly the difference. Our high school is more competitive. The say if you look at the student admitted into say MIT or Stanford, those in our high school, they especially the STEM students, you can clearly see those admitted into MIT or Stanford are stronger than those in Los Gatos High. But that's just the way they work. They cannot say because Saratoga High is more competitive than Los Gatos High, I'll give you a lot more quota. No, it doesn't work that way. Yeah. So this is something most people don't know. When we buy houses, we try to buy houses in the best high school. But depending on the students, it may not be the best fit. You may not actually. This is something I think later, if I have time, I'll go into more details. So keep in mind, you are competing with the same students in your high school. If your kid cannot perform well in this high school, it's better that you try to change to a different school if it's not too late. Actually, I try to ask my younger son Kyle, let's go change to Los Gatos High. He said, no, I don't want to change school. All my friends are going to Saratoga High. If I go to Los Gatos High, I don't have any friend. It's kind of late. I don't know. I think next year I may. He's ninth grade now. Next year, if he kind of figured out it's worth changing, it's still not too late. But we'll see. Yeah. So this is something very important. Yeah, finding the right high school for your kid. I have by now have actually helped. Uh, uh, um, this is also a Buddhist friend. Their son was going to Basis Independence, which is a pretty competitive private school, and they're paying tuitions because it's private. His son isn't doing well in terms of grade. I said they actually uh, their house is in Evergreen in San Jose. I said save your money, save the tuition, just move back to Evergreen, and his grade will be better because it's much more competitive in basis. And they moved back, and his grade is much better now. Yeah. Um, so this quota is something very important to keep in mind. You want to be a big fish in a small pond. Yeah. Also, oops. sorry. Oh, I don't know. Let me just use this. Yeah. Also, there are actually quota for majors too. Although universities in US are very different from China, basically you can go to university and later change your major. Where most universities, when admitting students, they don't admit by major anyway. But having said that, the admission officers, they do need to balance. Say there are some very hot majors. We all know computer science is the hottest major now, and also economics. That's another one. That's for students who want to be business major, because most undergrad, they don't have business major. So those who are interested in a business, they choose economics if there is no business major, and biology for pre-med students. So if the admission officer say put yourself in the shoes of the admission officer, you get so many applications wanting to major in CS. You can't like in this whole class, say 1,500 people, right? You cannot have half of the class major in computer science, no matter how good the students are. Yeah, so choosing the right major is another very important factor. Of course, your profile has to support your major. You cannot say, "Oh, I want to major in something, very unpopular, like Asian studies, but 50% of your extracurricular activity is computer science." That's not going to work. Yeah. So if you look at all these things, you will understand why there are some students seemingly very, very strong. They got rejected. So what happened? The quota, like a Stanley Zhong, right? He's from Ganhai, which is one of the most competitive high schools, the most competitive high schools in the Bay Area. Ganhai is one of them. Unfortunately, Saratoga High is one of them. And Cupertino has Lynbrook and Monta Vista. Fremont has Mission San Jose. Palo Alto High is pretty competitive too. If you are in one of these top competitive high school, all the other students in your high school are very strong too. And if you choose a major like a computer science, which is the hottest major, you are competing with many, many other students who are very strong, wanting to major in computer science too. So, unless you are really, really strong, I suggest not to do that. I've seen students who are really, really strong. They can still apply for computer science from Saratoga High and they still get admitted. But you have to be extremely strong. So, exactly what are top universities looking for? Instead of looking for a student who is well rounded, he's good at this, he's good at that, he's good at seemingly good at most things, the university is actually looking for students with one spike. This spike is not just good, it's extremely good. They want a class which is well rounded, say 1,500 students. They want some students who are really, really good scientists. And they want some students who are going to be really, really good at, say, politics. They will be the next president of the United States. Or they are really, really good business people. So they want a class of well-rounded students, but each student has at least one thing which is among the top in that area. So for you to compete, to going into the top universities, you have to cultivate your spike. You have to find out this area which the students can develop something at the national level. It's not at your high school level. It's not even at the state level. It's something at the at the national level. I give you some examples. Spike. What are some of the spikes? A published author. This is for research. You have to publish paper, and I think by now the competition is just getting higher and higher. If you just publish in high school journals, it's not that much a spike anymore. And Regeneron STS, this is the competition for research. This is the most prestigious competition for research. And this is, I think, among all the STEM competitions, uh, I think the universities value this the most. Most Chinese, we know the competition for math, for physics, the Olympiads. Those are just, you take exam. Those are not research. The universities, they have professor where they have students went on become professor and win the Nobel Prize by doing research, not by taking exams. So the universities, they really value your capability of doing research. Actually, most people don't even bother going to each university. If you go to, say, Stanford, you just look on their website. They will tell you what they want. They want this thing they call the intellectual vitality. They don't want students who are just good at getting GPAs or even take exams. That's not enough. That's not enough for a Stanford. So this is another example. Say if you think oh, if we develop something in music or in athletics or art, will this help with the college application? Yes, if you are at the top level. Say if you just play piano and get level 10, that doesn't help. What's top level? Top level is you perform as a soloist at the Carnegie Hall. I know my kids, they'll never be there. That's one big lesson I learned. I spent all this money since they were very small. I got them piano classes, art class, and the ping pong class, and none of them they had the talent or time to become at the national level. It's just a waste of all my money and a loss of time too. So whatever, yeah, Olympic medalist, if you are athletes, yeah, even if you just want to be recruited by the college, you have to be at a very very high level. Unless your kid has the talent, don't count on it. I cannot count on it. Even if my son has the talent, I don't even know enough to know if they have the talent or not. It's okay for them, to learn these just to have some hobby, but don't count much on it. It will help for their college application, not really for most students. And yeah, your profile has to support your intended major. If you are a STEM major, your profile, including your classes you're taking, it has to show you take, say, the calculus and the AP Physics. If you're going to apply for engineering or science, your extracurricular activity should show in this. And of course, if you want to apply for business or something else, you need to have these activities. There are all kinds of competitions out there for most majors. So it's good to at least try something. Um, you may not be able to win, but if you don't even try, you never know. And the other thing is Ivy Leagues. Actually, this is something I didn't know before until I did all this research. Ivy League schools, because sometimes you hear, especially nowadays, you hear especially Asian students, Asian boys. They even got into semifinalists of the Olympia math or physics. They still don't get admitted into any of the Ivy League schools. For us, we tend to think, the students who can get into semifinalists of these Olympia are really, really smart kids. And I think in China, it's very different. In China, if you are really good at these competitions, you don't even need to take the college entrance exam. You're guaranteed to go to the top universities. But in US, it's not like that. I've seen cases. There's this. He's not even a Chinese. He may be a Indian. I cannot tell exactly what race he is. He got into semifinalists of both Olympia math and the physics, and he's not even in the Bay Area. He's in Minnesota. Just because his grade is not perfect. He said I shouldn't have taken all those like AP US history. He's really not good at these classes. His, I think, unweighted GPA isn't that bad. I think it's a 3.6 something. And the best university he could get in was Michigan. He got rejected by all the Ivy Leagues and the Carnegie Mellon. So what's happening is the Ivy Leagues, they're not looking for engineers. They're looking for some scientists, but those who has the potential to win Nobel Prize. They actually want students who in the future will become leaders in all the different areas. They want the leaders, not the individual contributor like engineers. So this is something I didn't realize before. I thought, someone who can get into the Olympia math or physics, they're really see the semifinalists for the math or physics Olympia every year is only around 400 500 students. It's not that many students, but this is still too many for them to admit. Among these, some of them don't show the other qualities they're looking for, the leadership or the potential to win Nobel Prize. They still say no. They'd rather admit someone who can become a politician, a congressman, or the judge. Um, so they have a different perspective. Um, so that's why, especially in the Bay Area, so many Asian students, their parents are engineers, and they tend to be on this path too. And they just tried really hard and got this award, win this competition. They still cannot get admitted into the Ivy Leagues. It's not a black box. It's just not matching what they're looking for. Yeah. So let's kind of look into more details about these different aspects. The grades and the standard test. The grade, as I said, unweighted GPA, 10% students get 4.0. So you will want to try as hard as you can to have your unweighted GPA as high as possible. Because if you don't, it's going to hurt you really, really bad. And that's what happened to Bryant. His grade dropped a lot in the 11th grade. And the most important reason is he chose classes which were too heavy. He chose five AP classes and two honor classes. None of this is like the band or art, or they're all very solid classes. It's just way too much. And back then, I didn't know anything almost. That's something I'm very guilty of because once I started on my Buddhist past, I kind of lowered the expectation for my kids. I said, it's okay, they don't go to Ivy League, just go to UC Berkeley. Back then, UC Berkeley was for our high school is not difficult. I think you only need to have a good grades. You can go to UC Berkeley. It's not the case anymore. I didn't know any of this. And Brian has always been getting A's in school. So I didn't think, I didn't realize I have anything to be concerned of. So I didn't even know what classes he was choosing. Even he said I did take a look, but for me, I didn't even know what AP class means. But anyway, that's a big mistake. And also, he kind of got quite sick during the final. He actually had to go to the emergency. But anyway, his grade dropped a lot. And even after everything we did, he did actually do research in the summer of his 11th grade. And he did research on meditation, which is all his profile is around his activities around meditation. That's kind of the only thing I taught him to do, which turned out to be a blessing. And I was really surprised how good his research turned out. He actually did got into STS, the one I showed earlier, the research competition. Um, I think for the STS, I did some statistics analysis. I think in the whole Northern California, every year there are only about 20 students get this award, and most of them got into Ivy League schools. UC Berkeley and UCLA is about the lowest ranking school a student with this award in Northern California got in. But his grade was poor in 11th grade, and it just ruined everything. Even when he's in the 12th grade, he went back to 4.0 with five AP courses. Is too late. It's already too late. The damage is done. But at least he got into UC Berkeley. So that's what I'm saying. You want to try to keep your unweighted GPA as high as possible, because otherwise, when the admission officer compare you to all your other classmates, you are just ranked too low. And you at the same time you want to balance. You don't want to take all the easy classes to get just a 4.8 for unweighted, and then your weighted is too low. That's not okay either. um, but there are ways. I think we're running out of time today. uh, I'll probably in the future when I get time, I'll talk more about how to keep your unweighted GPA high and at the same time try to get as many AP courses as possible. And for the class selections, especially if you are STEM students, there are actually there's a sequence which I didn't know. This goes back to as early as in middle school. You get on every school is different. I really hate the U.S. system. It makes it just so unnecessarily complicated. You have to make sure your kid math is advanced enough that he will be able to take the most rigor math and physics class by 12th grade. Bryant actually, because of the earlier years, his math was not in the most advanced track. He couldn't even take the most advanced AP physics because by 12th grade, he's just taking calculus. He need to finish calculus in 11th grade, so in 12th grade he can take the AP physics. Um, so that's something you have to make a 4-year plan. Actually, this you should be making this plan when you are in middle school. And your classes have to support your intended major. I mentioned this earlier. And also, um, the SAT, ACT, although most universities are so-called test optional nowadays, they are still very important. Unless you think, my highest target is just UCs. I don't want to bother with the Ivy League or other private universities. UCs are test blind. They don't look at your SAT, even if you have one. um, then you don't need to spend time on SAT. Otherwise, it is still very important. The AP test, yeah, the AP test. For all the AP classes you take, you have to take the AP test. Even if your score is not good, then you don't show the universities. At least you want to take it. You don't want to just take the AP class without taking the AP test. Yeah, the extra curriculum. This is very important. I didn't know that. When you fill out the college application, there's this system called Common App. Most universities are in Common App. Uh, for Common App, there are the sections which is common for every universities, and then there's another section which is specific to each individual universities. In the common part, they ask you to list the 10 your most important activities and awards. I didn't even know that. So if you don't have any awards, when you put in these 10, you will see your application is not that strong, even if you have 4.0 GPAs. There are other students, they've been working hard to get certain awards. And for UCs, the list is even longer, it's 20. So you have to do enough things to at least fill these 20 something. And yeah, as I mentioned before, there are all kinds of competitions. Here, I particularly just listed the STEM competitions. I think these are the most well known. But for non-STEM students, there are lots of competitions out there too. And for research, there are competitions. The STS is only for senior, only high school senior can compete. ISEF, they're from the same organization. ISEF is not for just a senior. You can compete every year in high school. and they have something similar for even middle school students. And research publication, there are the high school student journals, and of course, there are the professional journals for the professors and the PhD students. Leadership. Every high school has many clubs. You can try to found a club, or you can try to join a club and become an officer. These all show your leadership. And of course, there's the ASB, the student body. That's very important for leadership too. But I think it's something difficult to get in, at least for both of my son. No chance. At least I don't see any chance they can get into the ASB and become any officers. And you can now it kind of become more common for a student to found a nonprofit organization to offer something for their community. And of course, there are the students who found the startups. These are for profit startups, a business. These are just some examples. And community service. Yeah, these are another aspects. Even some essays they ask about community service or what impact that you made to your community. There are students who are interested in politics. There are things they can do in that area, and I think that's very helpful if you can get to a certain level. But I don't think my kids can get into that area. Unfortunately, even I cannot. Um, Art, music, and sports. Um, I cannot really share much on this. All I know is the mistake I made, waste a lot of money and the time, and but I do know people, a student who are talented. Like one friend of mine, his son is very talented in playing piano, violin. I think he's the first violin of the San Francisco Symphony Youth Orchestra. He's very talented. He is not just normally good. He can actually get into the best music, Juilliard. But his parents doesn't want him to be studying music. They want him to do something which can make more money. But yeah, other than that, I don't know any friend whose kids are so talented in any of these. Okay. Yeah, I think yeah, that's 1 hour. Um, I think that's about what I want to talk, and I'll leave the floor open for questions and answers. Yeah, you can ask in Chinese. Yeah, go ahead. I don't hear anything. I see Julie and Grace open their mic. Are you trying to ask a question?
Yeah, I do. And
Yeah.
if it's okay, thanks so much for sharing all those great information. 我的 question 是说，嗯，就像你说的，就是说，这个 US 这个 college application 真的是一个非常 complicated 的 process，然后呢，就是说也涉及很多年，就是很多 work 不是一天两天就能够做成的。然后呢，美国的小孩呢，也很多不见得愿意跟父母合作，或者他们 fully understand how challenging it is。所以呢，就是我是想问的问题，就是说，嗯，如果就是说我们就是说 realize 到我们的小孩 可能没办法那么 competitive，不是说他们一定不可以，但是因为你要就是说 prepare 看那个 few years to ready to get to the average school 或者 top schools。那如果我们只是想说，既然我们的小孩这种可能性不是很大的话，我们只是想进一个，就是说 general 就是 second tier 的，也不见得说一定要是 UC Berkeley、UCLA，不是说就是像 UC Davis 啊，或者呃 UC Irvine 啊这种学校的话，那你觉得就是说，呃，你的 recommendation 是什么？就是说，我的意思是说，我们并不要，我们的小孩可能就是不太有这个可能性，能够拿到那么高的 average school 或者 UC Berkeley、UCLA。但如果我们的 goal 只是想就是说进比较 second tier 的学校的话，
Yeah, that's a really good question. Actually, there's some shortcut here. Um, for the UCs, um, actually, if you go to community college and then to transfer to UC, there's some big advantage there. There's the so-called tag, which is the guaranteed admission. Uh, but the top three UCs do not have these. UC Berkeley, UCLA, and UC San Diego doesn't have tag, but every other UC has tag. So what this tag is, you can, if you are curious, you can search more information online. It's basically if you have a certain GPA in community college, which is quite easy. You know, to be honest, if you are in a very competitive high school, uh, to get a good grade in your high school is way much more difficult than getting a good grade in community college. Even like Brian, he's in UC Berkeley now. His grade is better than his grade at our high school. Yeah, this year he's getting. I think by now the grades are out. Um, two of them he actually got A plus, math and biology, and computer science he's getting A too. I think he got even like the first computer science, the midterm. He actually got the full score on it. That was like you hardly ever get the full score in Saratoga High. So if you don't mind, going to community college, it doesn't look very good for the kid. Some kid they don't care, or some parents they don't care. It saves you more money too. You go to community college, you get 4.0 GPA, and you can when you apply to transfer to the UCs, you can select one school, say UC Davis, UC Santa Barbara, or UC Irvine, and you can even choose most of the majors. I think the only majors are not in tag is computer science or maybe data.
actually, hey, Jessica, actually, I just talked to one of my friend, and actually she told me, um, her son 是他的儿子的几个朋友都是那种
Ah,
top high school 毕业的，for whatever reason，他们当时就决定去了 community college，但是2年以后，他们全都进了 UC Berkeley、UCLA，他们甚至被 UC Berkeley 的的 CS 录取。他说，其实他说在 UC Berkeley 跟 UCLA 是没有这个说法的。其实所有的专业你都可以申请，而且那
对，
个能够，而且录取率都非常高。他说，
录取率很高，我倒是怀疑那是哪一年的事儿了。
就是那个他现在就是在大概就是去年吧，就是去年。
是吗？
对，他的儿子的3个同学，全部被 UC Berkeley、UCLA 录取了。他们都是 whatever reason，他们在 Saratoga High 的时候，都很 stress，所以最后他们就 decide 就说 we just take the easy，we just go to，他们就去了 the other college 而已的。 但是其实这些小孩其实都很厉害，就像你说，介绍 Toga 就是把那些小孩就逼得很厉害嘛。其实他们到了他们的 college 对他们来讲，easy peasy 4.0根本不是问题。所以就是说，等2年以后他们申请呃转学的时候，他们都转到了 top school，而且我还特地问他了，那我说那些比较 hot 的专业。他跟我讲，他说，比如说，我现在还比较 early stage，我不太知道。他是告诉我，比如说一的 CS 是在 Berkeley 是最难最难进的，
对对，
就
是是
几乎就是说你 high school 出来的话，根本是进不去的。亚一的话，几乎这个 chance
非
是 zero。
常难的。
对，
对对。
但是他说他儿子的同学竟然拿到了一的 CS 的那个 major。
那有可能是有可能，因为我就是收集了很多数据嘛，我也
嗯，
有看到，也是 Saratoga 的，她是个白人的女孩儿，也是上了 community college。我当时就想，我说她肯定是卷不过这些亚洲人呗，人家也是 community college 上了2年以后就进了 UC Berkeley 的 ECS，是我有看到这样的 data。
对，没有他这些我说的这个全是男生，而且全都是
他是男生还是小中男是吧？
对，小周呢全是亚裔，全是那个然后呢，他就跟我讲，就说他儿子其实是进了 Ivy School，但是呢，进去了以后非常非常 struggle，最后得了 mental health issue，所以他是跟我讲，就是说还是 health 最重要，就是因为现在卷的已经有点离谱了。就
是，
是说。
尤其是 STEM 学 STEM
对，
的小中男是。
对，他说已经离谱了，你真的要想把你的小孩子逼到那条路上吗？然后像我前2天又碰到，就是说 Polly 的妈妈就跟我讲，他儿子现在是12年级，他说在考，因为现在在考 final 嘛，然后上个星期 meet 到，他就说他儿子有 major breakdown，然后也被diagnose 有 mental health，所以因为就像你说的这么多，就是说真的是很可怕，现在就是说。就是说，
是是，
所以我就在想说，那我们就是说退一步啦，反正就是说大学也是很重要，但是也不是人生最重要的一步。如果小孩子就是说能够找到自己的 passion 或什么，也不见得一定要去挤这一条独木桥。那是不是就是说其他的学校稍微不是那么一流的，但是就是说也是可以有一个途径让他们找到他们将来喜欢的 passion，跟他们能够就业很出色，就是说。
对，实际上就是说 community college 转，我觉得只要就是说孩子不在乎不好看，家长不在乎不好看，其实是个就是说挺好的选择。我现在老二我也是这样，就老二就是像你讲的，他不跟你配合。我
对呀。
老大那时候啥都不懂，所以呢，很多东西没有给他计划。老二我早4年计划给他计划好了，结果根本实施不下去。
对啊，
人家
现在
这个
我碰到的很多家长聊，特别是男生，都是这样子的。你计划不如闭环快呀，而且你也跟他不能把亲子关系搞坏了，对不对？而且
对对对，就是这样的。
对你亲子关系搞坏，特别是男孩子到了一定的程度的话，真的他如果走上一条比较那个 extreme 的道路的话，到时候真的我们会后悔都来不及。
是是是，所以这个就是说，我想这个 community college 对我们那个大家互相 share 一下 information 还是蛮好的。
这是一个，
community
第二个呢，我另外还有朋友跟我介绍，我不知道你有没有做这方面 research，因为我是觉得你介绍这些都很好，但是问题就是说要小孩子配合，就像 Brian，他跟你配合，但是不是我们很 lucky 都能够有这样子的小孩，对不对？那还有一个呢，我不知道你听说没有，我另外一个朋友跟我介绍，因为我现在是想说。我要有2手准备，一手准备就是说，如果我推得动，那我来推；那如果我推不动，那我也得有，就是说2手准备，就是 backup plan。然后他们还有各种说法，就是说呢，其实加州这一边现在游戏也很卷嘛，但是他们说，其实如果我们能够跳离加州，去其他州立学校去上学，比如说纽约的那个是叫 Brookstone 吧，那个
啊，
懂。他们说，像这种学校，其实他非常欢迎加州的学生去。他有些专业或者有些那个，他还愿意 offer 你 in-state tuition。
对，是不光是那个不是就是那个像东岸的那个学校，它不是说排名特别高的，他们实际上就是很欢迎那个西岸的学生去，给私立学校也给奖学金的呢。就是
对。
那个我那个有个朋友的孩子，他就去了那个叫 RPI 吧，然后就是给了他好像学费就是奖学金，他就学费就只付3万。
对啊，所以我就想说，我们可能也要就是说想想，就收集一些这方面的 information，就是说有 second plan 啦，因为你所有的人都从一条道路上去作战的话，到最后就是互相残杀。
对，就是内卷嘛，就是自己跟自己
对，
卷
所以
嘛。
我是觉得我们也要，我不知道你有没有这个想法，或者在座的有没有这种想法。我是觉得我们可能还要稍微另辟蹊径一下，看看有没有就是说其他就是曲线救国的方法。嗯，
对，是那个东岸有一些那个私立的学校的话，就是也还算不错，但不是说 Ivy League 那种学校。就我们去都挺像我那个朋友，他就是成绩都不是很好，他连 Santa Clara University 都没录他，他去了那个 RPI 就还给他奖学金了。当然他就是也是一心要申请 CS 的那种，他自己成绩又不是他在 Harvard，但是成绩又搞坏掉了。所以这个
对。
就是说，
所以我就
你你
觉得我们可能就是说，我不知道，就是说我们有没有兴趣，大家就是说，因为这种信息呢，就不是特别容易得到。但是我是觉得，看能不能我们自己开始收集一些这些 information，互相分享一下，就是 make
其实
一个这个。
是就是说就是说，你如果不是说盯着这个 top 20 top 30的，剩下的那些学校其实都挺好进的。
是吗？因为我
难进的它就是这些，因为大家谁都要往里面挤。
对，但是我是觉得这种东西是能挤进去是好，但是我这种能不能挤进去，就是现在我个人觉得，就是说，除非你的孩子非常 talented 的，否则的话，真的就是说，即使父母知道很多，但是也不见得推得动。呃，
对对，是是。我想其实就是说，我是觉得我给我老二安排的现在就是，推不动不行的话，真就 community college 去吧。community college 你有保录，你就是到时候申请前3个 UC 进不去，你保录 UC Santa Barbara 或者 UC Irvine 或者UC 这个 Davis，那也可以了，对吧？其实这些 UC 也都是挺好的。如果你去看那个就是排名的话，这些 UC 也都是能高的话，现在也都像 UC Davis 今年都排到前30里面去了，那
对。
排到28了。
哎，
Irvine Santa Barbara
但
也是30
但是
出头。
我的 understanding 现在这个 second tier 的 UC 也越来越卷了，已经。
是，所以就是说 second tier 的 UC 的话，就去那个 community college 去转，比
对，
你直接申请要容易得
这
多。
是一个，第二个呢，我就想说，就是说可能要看一下外州的。我觉得其实小孩子去一下外州几年锻炼锻炼也是一个挺好的，因为现在的小孩在湾区被父母都宠着，我觉得让他们去就是 open mind 地去外州读几年书，也不见得是一个不好的选择，就是说。
对，你要是到外州，就是都已经排名到30出外了的，加州的学生去挺容易的。但那个你可能就是要找那种有奖学金的，不然的
对对
话
，exactly，因为否则的话就价格上就不 make sense 嘛，right？那就情愿在 UC Community College，但是如果能够有奖学金的话，那我是觉得应该可能比上 Community College 会好一点吧，
不知道呢，那就看要我的话，宁肯让他在加州待着上
是吗？
community
但是问
college。
题是说，其实你到外州你也可以再转回来的嘛，对不对？
哦，不是，你从外州转回来 UC 你就没有那个好处了。他 community college 他是特别照顾的。
我知道，我知道，但是如果你成绩不错，就像你说的，其实我们这些小孩子，就是因为我们在太好的学区了，所以这些小孩子才就是没办法就是出头，因为压力就好的人太多了。但是如果他们去外州上学的话，他们一定会是班上比较 就是说好优秀的，那我是说能不能就是说，比如说在外州读2年，然后再转回再申请 UC Berkeley、UCL，即使他们没有 就是说没有这个 policy 的 favorable，但是凭他们的实力，我想应该也许也可以，我不知道，我只是这么说。
应该也可以，应该也可以的，是可
因为我
以的。
就知道我有朋友的小孩，他们 cover 的时候，他们本来去了东部，后来 cover 的时候，他们又就转回 UC Berkeley 啊什么的。
哦，对对，应该是可以的，应该也是可以的。嗯，对，那个UC 的话，就是它这个保录，我觉得还是蛮好的，你就
对
guarantee 了嘛，你
对对，
就是
那个是肯定的。但是毕竟 community college 嘛，读2年，我是想说，我的 struggle 就是说，我在 community college 读两年，转去好的 UC 呢，还是说我去外州的公立学校读2年，再转回 UC？就是说，
反正如果要是我的话，我宁肯 community college，
为什么？
community college 省钱呐。
但是如果有奖学金呢，也没差多少了，就。
community college 基本上就不花钱，community college 基本上就
但是
不花钱。
但是你觉得 community college 的这个教学质量呢？问题是
是这样的，你头2年的话，你上的都是 general education 的课，就很少有 major 的课，没大啥差别的。
是吧？
对，而且那个如果是那个你的high school 如果是很 strong 的话，像我问我儿子嘛，我还怕那个什么，我怕他那个 high school 他上的那个 calculus 是 high school 的不够 solid，我说你到 Berkeley 再重新上一下。然后他上了一下，我说Berkeley 有比那个 high school 讲的多、讲的深什么的吗？他说没有，我说考试有难吗？他说也没有。我想我也觉得蛮奇怪的，也许就我们这 high school 实在是太卷了，居然到了这个Berkeley 都没有说觉得比那个难。
哦，这个倒是很 good to know，因为帕拉头这边听说数学也是教的很深，像我女儿今年上那个 GOH，我真的觉得他们真的是挺难的，就是说，但是我
啊，
不知道跟大学的课程比是怎么样。
对，他那意思就是说，其实今年都没有必要重复上的了嘛。
I see, good to know。如果这样的话，
对，我真的也没有想到，他的数学实际上不算 strong 的，这个就是我很大的一个遗憾。我从小就没有给他加过任何的数学课，所以他那个考那个 SAT 头一次才考780嘛，我说你这么简单的题都做错，我看了简直就觉得，哎呀，无药可救了。
嗯。
结果那个但是我老二我倒是有给他加一些了，但人家也不太愿意做题，所以那个你这边给他 plan 好了，他也不照着做，你也没有办法的。嗯，对，这个对对，那个这个问题问得非常好，这个问题问得非常好。不过我就担心以后这个越来越多的家长意识到，这个从 community college 转是一
但
条
是但是你知道吗？有那个 那个就是 Governor Nathan 有一个就是说新的 policy，好像是 effective，好像是2026还是27吧，他要更加就是说他这条路要开得更宽，rather than 更窄，因为就是
啊，
说
它更宽，你是说，那个，怎么
他更要
个宽？
favor，他要更加
哦，
favor。
是吗？
他要 favor 我，你去 search 一下，我记得前一阵子我看到过 Come Cross 的，好像是26还是27，就正好是你老二跟我老大的时候，他要 face in，就是 gradually face in，他的 policy，因为现在大家都在 complain，就是说 UC 的，像我们这种 taxpayer 不能进 UC，然后他的就是解决方法就是说。你们先去 community college，然后我会 guarantee 你们全部能进到 UC。然后呢，它有这个 face in 的 process，好像刚开始的时候就是 UC Berkeley、UCLA 不是完全 participate，但是 大概到2006、2007，他就要 force UC Berkeley、UCLA 也得 open up 这个 channel，就是这个 channel 要越开越广，rather
我
than
想那个时候的，我想要那样的话，好多人都去上 community college 去了。
我不知道吧，反正就是说但是就像你说的，有些人也会有这种 perception 嘛，就觉得不好
不好看。
说。对，这也就是我跟我的朋友再三问这样子，那他也是跟我去，他也问了那些小孩子的父母，就说另外一点，我们害怕就是 community college，就是说怕他交不好的朋友嘛，就是说有些小
应该
孩子。
不会的，应该
对，
不会。
但是他说没有，他说其实现在去 community college 那些小孩全都是很好的，就是说像 Saratoga High 呀、p a l a d o High 这种都是很好的。他说那些小孩都非常好，家庭也非常好，根本就没有问题，就是因为
而且是这样的，就是物以类聚，人以群分。你孩子本来就是还不错的孩子，他到了那儿，他也不会跟那个坏孩子，他搞不到一起去的。
这是第一个，第二个呢，他们说现在的 community college 跟以前又不一样了，因为现在就是很多去 community college，并不是说他们没有选择，而是说他们就像你说的，比如说你老二有可能他可以去外州上，但是你反而决定你要让他在这边上 community college，然后再去游戏，你懂我这意思吗？就说
明白。
现在以前又不一样了，因为现在太卷了，然后把那些好学校的孩子都给卷下来了。所以反而变成那些好学校的孩子就去了 community college，所以这个 community college 这个 pool 改变了，
对，我想照这个趋势下去的话，会有越来越多的人选择 community college，因为
而且
你想，那个像这个 UC 以前的话，好一些的孩子是看不上 UC 的，像我们邻居家的孩子，前些年 UC Berkeley 给 offer，人家根本看不上的，所以我那时候就觉得，我们那个降低标准，我们就 UC Berkeley 就行了。现在的话，就是在我们 Saratoga High，你能进 UC Berkeley 都是一件很不容易的事情了。
对啊，人家都很羡慕啊，对啊，所以我觉得，而且就像你前面解释的嘛，对不对？现在被卷下来的是什么样的学生？就像 Stanley 那样子的那个小孩，对不对？就是你卷下来的，其实是在就是说像，嗯、Saratoga High 啊，Cupertino，Lynbrook 啊，Gun 啊，这些非常优秀的 high school 的小孩子，这些小孩子的 family 也都是 well educated 的。然后这些小孩本身都是很好的孩子，都是这些被卷下来的。现在反而被卷进去的是什么？卷进去的是那种，就像你说的，就说 first generation low income。但是以前像这种小孩一般是去 community college 的，所以现在这个 order 是 reversed 的。
对，现在是那个，我想，对，community college 还有一个好处，那个其实那个，那个有的孩子嘛，他就是高中的时候就在 community college 就开始上课了，然后他进了 community college 以后，他1年他就可以转了，所以你那样的话，你3年你就可以毕业了。
现在跑了 auto 就有一个 program 就是这样子的，他就是 high school student 跟那个 Fort Hill 搞在一起，搞了一个新的 program，就是 high school student 就可以去 community college 拿课。
对，我们这边好像，那个有一阵子了，我不知道那 program 有多长时间了。以前好像人家也不愿意去的，就是那个我们是跟那个 West Valley 有这样的一个 program。所以我觉得那个我现在这么听的话，我觉得真的就是说，如果你本来也不太想冲藤了的话，觉得冲藤也太难了，也冲不进去，那真的就索性就 community college 转 UC。但我想啊，这趋势下去以后的话，相对来讲，这个转 UC 这个路也会越来越难一点了。但总体来讲的话，我想可能应该还是比你高中毕业直接升可能还是应该会容易的。
对啊，但是问题你冲藤的话，你那个代价那么大，你最终你能不能，就说这个能冲上去这个可能性有多大？我是觉得真的是，我现在所听到的冲藤的都是准备了，就是说 至少4、5年、6、7年这样一个
对
path。
对，而且是这样的，我意识到，你那个要冲疼的孩子一定得他够自推的，不然
对
你家长推不动的。像
对，
我们家
而且
老二推不动的，其实我们
对
家老大是推得动，但老大那时候又没推，所以那个不过也好给我省钱了。这老二推不动，我什么样的条件我都给他创造了，人家就不动的，没办法的。
对，就是说
嗯，
我是觉得冲疼的小孩，就是说他有 combination，就是说第一呢，他自己的智力，就是说他确实有一定的 talents，right？然后呢，第二呢，他也愿意跟父母合作，他也愿意去做这些应该做的事情，要有这些 combination，没有这些 combination 的话，真的是挺难的。这是第一。第二呢，我周围能够冲疼的，都是花出的努力，都是不是1年2年的。
对，你真的就是得所以我刚才说嘛，就是 start early，你要
对。
这个什么的话，你得早早就得开始的。
对，
是，
但是你早早开始，你怎么能够 make sure 就是他一直能够愿意跟你那个呢？否则的话，你也会半
对，
途而废呀。
是，嗯。对，我想这个就是可能你推一阵子，可能就能发现能推得了多远的了。就我老二，我刚开始推他的时候还行，那时候就是没有很难，没有很多的时候还可以。现在就是再让他做一些什么难度比较大的呀什么的，他就不干了，没办法的了。我
嗯，
像老大就没有额外给他上任何的课嘛，老
这是一个。
二的话
第二个呢，我不知道你周围的人怎么样。我另外也有听说，其实进城了以后啊，这个竞争也是非常厉害的。就是确实也有小朋友进去了，但是最终也没能够出来，或者出来的。
有这样的，是有的，我也有
对
听说，我也有
对，
听说。
我也有听说这样子，所以我就觉得，就是说，有时候我们也得看看，就是说，真的，就是说，我们真的是不是的小孩有这样的 talent，然后也能够自推，然后呢，要知道这个藤校里面真的都是，就是都是精英啦，真的是精英中的精英，你到时候真的能不能 survive 也是一个问题。
而且其实是这样的，也是就是说，看他孩子本身是不是其实去藤校，比如说你拿藤校和 UC 比吧，真的就是说，藤校它优势在什么？你将来要是真是能做 leader 的话，你的这个 network 是很重要的。藤校的话，你的 network 很重要。如果这个孩子他本身就没有这种具备真正一个做 leader 的这样的一个这个素质，他可能就是将来也就是做个这个 engineer 啊什么的。你到了藤校，他那些 resource 你也根本用不上，所以这也是一种浪费。就是，
这是一个。第
从这个
二个呢，我听说那个藤校的那个 Stern 啊，其实并不好念。他们说
呃，
其实不是那么好念下来的，确实有些课程确实非常难。就是说你不有些，比如说像我们现在在 high school，我们就在讨论那个 physics C 嘛，然后
啊，
有些家长就在说，你不能随便让小孩去注册那门课，那门课真的不是说你靠努力就一定能够拿得下来的。就说你确实要各方面，就说你的 mindset 啊，你的脑子要够用，就是说，所以很多家长过去拿过那门课的家长都在劝家长，就是你们不要盲目让小孩去上 up 那门课，就是说有
对，
些课就是确实不是靠努力就能拿下来，然后会让小孩子就是自尊心很大，很受刺激，就是说。
而且那个你要不是学理科的话，也用不着上那门课。你要是学文科啊，学什么，
他们说，即
用不着。
使学理科的话，也不是所有的小孩都能够拿得下那个 Physics C 的那个课程，说是。
那个说实话，你要是学理科，要是想进好一点的，那你那课还真得去啃，不然的话，他会觉得你的这个 class 的 rigor 太弱的。反
是吧？
正对对，这你要是学，这个 engineering 和 science 的话，你那课倒还真的是得去学去的。而且你得 make sure 你11年级的时候，你就得把 calculus 上了，你12年级才能上那门课，不然的话，你那个 你 calculus 没上，你去上那门课，你肯定是学得很吃力。你一边学 calculus 一边上那门课，那肯定砸，肯定砸。所以那个 Bryant 他因为他就晚了嘛，他12年级才上的 calculus，他就那个C physics C 他就根本没上，没办法上的。嗯。
另外我就想问问看你，就是说你对现在的一些专业啊什么，有没有什么，就是说有一些研究，就是说除了 CS 以外，嗯，
嗯，这个专业的话就是，对，这几个热门儿的，你在报的时候你避开。反正你进去这个现在一般就是 CS、DS 是有限制不让转的。当然要在这个 Ivy School 也没有限制了，就像这种那个公校的话，它有限制。其他的UC Berkeley 好像 Economics 现在也算 high demand 的了。其他的学校反正都好转嘛，你尽量避开，就不要报那个像我们那个 Youth Leadership Retreat 的一个女孩儿，她是想学生物的，就是将来那个我说你不要报生物，反正你进去以后那个 UC 的话，你生物都可以基本上随便转。我就那个让她就是报了另外一个那个专业。
你让他报的什么专业呢？
他报的 Cognitive Science，因为他是跟
报了
我
什么东西？再说一遍。
Cognitive Science。
哦，Cognitive Science。
对，
OK。
他跟 Bryant 一起是他们在学校里面放的那 Meditation Club 嘛，
嗯哼。
然后他又做了那个暑假，那个 Professor Lee Guide 他做了 meditation 的 research，所以他报 Cognitive Science 也是非常 match 的。
然后他进了哪里呢？
不知道呢，还没那个
哦哦，他比 Brian 小。
对对，他今年申请嘛，今年那个，我觉得他 UC 应该能录得不错。那个 Ivy，我觉得还是他那个 paper 只发在了高中生的journal 上，冲 Ivy 不太够，我觉得。
Cognitive Science 的话，跟 Neuroscience 是不一样吗
它是一个 interdisciplinary 的，它有 neuroscience 的那个
？OK。
psychology 啊什么的都，它是一个就是综合性的一个。
因为你觉得 Bio 还是很难申请。
Bio 相对来讲还是难申请。嗯。因为那些 pre-med 的人都要申请那个 bio。
但是
你你
Pre-Med 的话，实际上他们说什么专业都无所谓啊，只要你学了就是，能够
说
将来。
是这么说的了，